A South African government watchdog says President Jacob Zuma should open a graft probe. Building a better food system while encouraging sustainability. And winter comes to Westeros with a dose of revenge in the new season of Game of Thrones. Africa 54 starts right now.
Macquarie, this is Africa 54. Now, a wave of violence swept across Africa on Wednesday, striking in Nigeria, Cameroon and Kenya. Let's begin in northeastern Nigeria, where people have new security concerns following a series of suicide bombing attacks. Police say 4 suicide bombers carried out attacks in Maiduguri, killing at least 17 people and wounding more than 20 others. Police said Wednesday most of the victims were civilian militia standing guard at security posts. The militant group, Boko Haram, has killed more than 20,000 people and forced nearly 3 million to flee their homes in its bid to create an Islamic state. Now, in northern Cameroon, 2 suicide bombers killed at least 12 people and wounded over 40 others late Wednesday. A senior army source and a local official says the attack was carried out by 2 women who walked into a busy area in the town of Waza, 8 kilometers from the Nigerian border. The governor for the far north region where the attack occurred, however, said 13 people had been killed and 43 wounded. A baby was among the dead. Those who were seriously wounded were flown to nearby hospitals. No group claimed responsibility for the attack, but again, the region has been a frequent target of Boko Haram militants. In East Africa, 6 Kenyan police officers were killed and 2 were wounded when their convoy was attacked by gunmen in central Kenya. Now, according to a police source, members of the police anti-stock theft unit traveling in 2 vehicles were attacked by members of the Pokot ethnic group while on a familiarization tour in Laikipia County, where drought and scarce grazing land is fueling violence. Laikipia has been hit by a wave of violence in recent months as armed cattle herders searching for dwindling grazing land have driven tens of thousands of cattle into private farms and ranches. Over a dozen Kenyans have been killed in the violence. Many residents in the area, however, accuse local politicians of inciting the violence ahead of the general elections in August. Now, Tuareg separatists have seized a town in Mali's desert north from a pro-government ethnic Tuareg militia after days of fighting, according to separatists and a local legislator close to the government side. Fighting between rival Tuareg factions has intensified, and it is threatening to derail a 2015 peace deal forged to end years of conflict and instability in the West African nation. Now, the rebel coordination of Azawad movements, CMA, and the pro-government Gatia are locked in a bitter power struggle in northern Mali, despite the return of state authority to its cities in March for the first time since the 2012 Tuareg uprising. A CMA spokesman confirmed that Nefis, a town in the Sahara Desert, had been taken. Northern Mali was once a thriving tourist hub, but a Tuareg insurrection in 2015 created a power vacuum that has turned it into a launchpad for jihad attacks across the Sahara and the entire Sahel South. Now, South Africa's anti-graft watchdog wants President Jacob Zuma to comply with that directive by her predecessor and appoint a judge to investigate influence peddling in his government. Former public prosecutor Thuli Mondensela, a constitutionally mandated anti-corruption watchdog, recommended last November that a full investigation was needed into allegations that members of the Gupta family, friends of Zuma, wielded undue influence over political appointments and government contracts. Well, but Zuma has challenged the need to open that probe. Mondensela's successor, Busizwe Mkhwebane, has filed papers with the High Court saying Zuma should have complied with their predecessor's report by December. Persistent corruption allegations are piling pressure on Zuma, and there are increasing calls for him to stand down from within the ruling African National Congress. Parliament will hold a no-confidence vote on Zuma next month. NATO forces in Europe scrambled fighter jets to intercept approaching Russian aircraft close to 800 times last year. That's almost double their figure from 2014. And that's according to a new report which calls for a new agreement and improved communications between NATO and Russia to avert potentially dangerous incidents. And Ridgewell has more from London.
In the Cold War, it was routine. Russian planes buzzing the airspace of NATO members in Western Europe. The report from the Henry Jackson Society, a pro-democracy think tank, details the extent to which Moscow has revived the tactic. Britain scrambled jets to intercept Russian aircraft on 21 days between 2014 and 2016. Other NATO forces in Europe, seen here practicing a so-called Quick Reaction Alert or QRA mission, scrambled jets close to 800 times in 2016.
Those peaks roughly overlap with tensions or periods of increased tension.
Images like this play well back home.
Russia is able to portray itself theoretically as being strong and NATO members and NATO as a whole as being weak, and this works very well domestically for President Putin.
But the flights also allow Russia to harvest intelligence.
On channels of communication between NATO member states, it's able to gain information on the abilities of the Royal Navy captains and the Royal Air Force pilots. It's able to gain information on our early warning system, for example.
The cat-and-mouse game is not only in the skies of Europe. Russian naval activity has also increased, especially around the Scottish base of Britain's nuclear-armed submarine fleet.
If Russia's submarines were able to, in a sense, record the unique acoustic signature of those submarines, then that would have a very, very detrimental effect on the UK's ability to defend itself.
In turn, Russia accuses NATO of buzzing its airspace. This video taken last month appears to show a NATO Typhoon jet shadowing a plane carrying Moscow's defense minister. The report calls for improved communication and clearer rules of engagement between Western European powers and Moscow to avert potentially dangerous incidents. Henry Ridgewell for VOA News, London.
US President Donald Trump arrived in France on Thursday for the Bastille Day celebrations that will see American and French troops marching together on Paris' famed Champs-Élysées ahead of the pageantry. Mr. Trump will try to find common ground on issues of Syria and counter-terrorism in an otherwise strained relations with the new French President Emmanuel Macron. VOA's Luis Ramirez reports from Paris.
It was a handshake that went viral back in May, a young new French leader conveying a message that France would stand up to President Trump and his America First policy. Analysts say this next meeting promises to be a civil encounter most of the time.
But at the same time, this will be a particularly awkward encounter because the French not only have elected a president who's almost the antithesis of Mr. Trump, but there is this deep animosity to the fact that the Trump administration is withdrawing from the Paris Climate Accord.
France put much work into hosting the 2015 Climate Change Summit and considers the agreement a great achievement.
So to finally have reached a conclusion on that agreement, only to see the newly elected United States president withdraw the US from it almost with next to no notification, that will be a very sore point of contention at those meetings. And no matter how much they try to paper over it in their public appearances, you can be sure that in the private discussions that they have, the French will be doing everything they can to try to find some solution to this.
And then there is Trump's relationship with Russian President Vladimir Putin, on display in their marathon meeting at the G20 last Friday. France, along with the rest of Western Europe, is nervous.
There's nothing that's happened there, I think, in substantive terms, which we should worry about a lot. But the process, the language, the way in which she seems very ready to use quite harsh language against allies and more reluctant to use harsh allies against Russia, makes people think, well, a few months down the line, are we going to see an American initiative on Syria or on Russia or on Ukraine or somewhere else, agreed with the Kremlin before it's been discussed with people in Paris or Berlin or indeed London?
This is Trump's third overseas trip and third to Europe since taking office in January. During his visit, Trump will take part in Bastille Day celebrations. Talks with Macron are expected to cover Syria and counterterrorism, areas where agreement is easy. White House officials say the more difficult issue of climate may also be on the table. Luis Ramirez, VOA News, Paris.
Well, I want to know what you think about Africa 54 and the stories we cover. Join the conversation on Facebook. The address is Africa 54. We're also streaming our show live on Facebook, so check us out and share our show with your friends. Read our headlines 24/7 on voaafrica.com and find me on Twitter at VOA Vince McCory. Now, coming up, does food security and sustainability mix? Stay with us to find out.
This is BizBeat.
Someday you might have a driverless grocery truck coming to your door. The Oxbotica Cargo Pod, a driverless vehicle developed in partnership with online grocery giant Ocado, is loaded with storage bins and Selenium software to navigate around the city to bring you your groceries. Oxbotica Chief Executive Graham Smith says the company is still running trials in Greenwich, London.
So the trial is about learning about how these vehicles will fit in the environment as much as it's about the technology.
The driverless pod is battery operated and has 8 bins. You walk out, you push a button, open the bin, and get your goods. David Sharp is the head of Ocado Technology.
People typically order around 50 items, and so that means that the customer gets a big delivery, which makes it profitable for the retailer.
But Sharp says to make those small deliveries profitable, that's where the driverless vehicle comes in. For VOA's BizBeat, I'm Philip Alexio.
Well, it's time for our health report, and joining us now is Africa 54 health correspondent Lino Madu with a look at how permaculture can improve your health. Lino.
Well, the United Nations Sustainable Development Goal aims to end hunger, achieve food security, and improve nutrition, and promote sustainable agriculture. Experts say the agricultural sector presents key opportunities for improving nutrition and health, and permaculture is one such approach. Permaculture, or permanent agriculture, is defined as the development of agricultural ecosystems intended to be sustainable and self-sufficient. Medical observers say permaculture can improve the health of the environment, and promotes food security. Joining us live via Skype from Nairobi, Kenya, is Sheena Shah, Managing Director of the Permaculture Research Institute of Kenya. Ms. Shah, welcome to Africa 54.
Thank you very much. It's a pleasure.
First off, could you tell us, explain to us a little better how permaculture is unique in its approach and what it is really?
Yeah, sure. So permaculture is really a tool to develop a more sustainable and ecological landscape over time, and really, like, it's really based on the 3 ethics: care of the earth, care of the people, and fair share. So we are now teaching farmers to become more resilient over time and really regenerating their land.
So in that process, how is this improving health for the farmers as well as community?
Well, first of all, as I said, regenerating their land means improving soil, the quality of the soil, and bringing it back to life and growing more healthier food in a more biodiverse system. So not just one crop, but many different crops rotating to really create a holistic system.
And how is that different from what is called organic farming?
We do use, well, permaculture is very organic in its own way. We do use natural pesticides to manage the systems, and it's just as healthy as organic farming, but organic farming is very intense, whereas permaculture is really mimicking nature and using that to its ability to grow.
Now tell us about the work of PRI, the Permaculture Research Institute of Kenya, and how you are able to really make an impact in the communities you serve.
So PRI Kenya was started in 2011 and has different programs that are branched under. So we have the education program, the community permaculture program, the research program, a consultancy program, and a regenerative enterprise program. And the education program focuses on teaching farmers and people all over the world on permaculture, which is really a 2-week permaculture design certification course in the community permaculture demo sites that we have here that are spread across the region. So people come over, they learn about permaculture. It's a very hands-on approach, and then they take back these solutions and go and start their own projects. And we've seen a lot of impact from that. And farmers themselves are also starting to use these practices in their own models. And then we've got the community permaculture program, which is very much linked to the education program, that demonstrate permaculture principles and are sustainable and thriving sites. And people come to these sites to learn and take in the knowledge, and then again go and start their own projects and really see communities become more resilient and building livelihoods through this approach. And then we've got the research program that we're now starting to form and get stronger on it to provide data from the community permaculture projects, and that would supplement the education program as well, and how we're doing and how it's reaching to people. And we've got the consultancy program, which is now get to private training for people who can't attend these 2-week courses or specialized courses. So we go out and we train their staff and really develop a model that is catered to them and their needs. And these are more private. And then we've got the regenerative enterprise program, which is really helping organic farmers across the region to really tap into value addition from their model sites. So PRI Kenya is now helping open up the avenues for these farmers and these people to bring their products in and their produce, and then we just start marketing that and work with local outfitters to build up on the enterprise program.
So in the dynamic of reaching the Sustainable Development Goals by 2030, how much attention is permaculture receiving?
Yeah, I mean, when we first started, it was very new. It was a very new concept. People didn't understand what permaculture was. I think the term is very new, but the approach is not new. It's really tapping into the ancient wisdom of farming and using traditional practices that farmers used to use before we went into this whole big-scale factory farming or industrial farming. Now it's really picking up, and the demand for permaculture is really rising. And why?
Quickly, I wanted to ask you this. Tell us about the health impact that you've seen among the communities, briefly.
Well, permaculture is a very holistic approach. So you're developing a biodiverse system, and once you start to develop these healthy soils, you immediately start to grow healthier food, and obviously the yield increases. And really, you become conscious with the process. So what you consume yourself is you start to become conscious about that and choose healthier foods to eat, because you're already starting to look after your external landscape. So it's very much also looking after yourself internally, and becoming more mindful of what you're growing, how you're looking after your soils, and the entire management around this.
Okay, so what you grow is important, how you grow it, and what you eat as well is important.
Absolutely.
Okay, Sheena, thank you so much for joining us.
Thank you very much.
And that was Sheena Shah. She is Managing Director of the Permaculture Research Institute of Kenya. Now, a new report issued by the World Health Organization and UNICEF says 2.1 billion people worldwide lack access to safe, readily available water at home, and 4.5 billion people lack safely managed sanitation. The Joint Monitoring Program report presents the first global assessment of, quote, safely managed drinking water and sanitation services. Billions of people have gained access to basic drinking water and sanitation services since 2000, but these services do not necessarily provide safe water and sanitation. The overriding conclusion is that too many people still lack access, particularly in rural areas. Dr. Bruce Gordon is coordinator of water, sanitation, and hygiene at the WHO.
Diarrheal disease undoubtedly causes the highest toll. 842,000 people die every year because of unsafe water, sanitation, and hygiene. We get into explosive epidemics. For example, one that's currently happening on cholera in the Horn of Africa, which is very concerning to WHO. And in Yemen alone, there's approaching 300,000 cases of cholera. When we look at basic access, when we look at things like open defecation, which is an expression of inequality, almost 900 million people are openly defecating today. That is inexcusable, unacceptable in our time. So we've got to attack that. We've also got to push for higher levels of service for those that are fortunate enough to have, for example, the basics. So what that means is it means more investment, it means more efficient and targeted spending, it means higher political prioritization, and really kind of having better governance.
And in order to decrease global inequalities, the new SDGs call for ending open defecation and achieving universal access to basic services by 2030. And that's our health report for today. To stay in touch, find me on Twitter @LenorMoudou. Back to you, Vincent.
Well, Lenore, thank you very much. And I'll be sure to watch Lenore Moudou's health reports every Tuesday and Thursday right here on Africa 54. But Google and YouTube had better watch out. Here comes a 19-year-old Ghanaian student who has built an online video search engine, and the innovation has now caught the attention of some of the industry's big tech companies. Some critics are calling it the African YouTube. Ghanaian university student Gabriel Opare wanted to build a search engine that could challenge the dominance of Google. He taught himself how to code by taking online courses in his free time. On his quest to rival Google, the world's most popular search engine, Opare developed Madclaw, a free search engine for videos. Madclaw discovers and streams videos from the different locations on the internet, all in one place. Opare says it has been a learning process since he began in 2015.
A lot of people haven't really supported the idea that a 19-year-old can create a video search engine that will really matter in the world. I've met people who have told me that if there's a YouTube, then why would they ever need to use Madclaw? That is very discouraging. But I believe that these are criticisms that are very constructive. I believe that my business is good enough and that it can scale globally, but that is not to say that I am closing my eyes to the faults of my business. Yeah. It is a legitimate point to say that YouTube is a video hosting website. There are lots of videos there, and Madclaw is also there are lots of videos on Madclaw as well, but they are two different entities. While YouTube is a video hosting website, Madclaw combines the power of YouTube and two other video hosting websites in order to create Madclaw.
Now, Gabriel is currently a full-time student of sociology at the University of Ghana in Accra. Brilliant fellow. Well, it's time now for a short break. Still to come on Africa 54, inside the Game of Thrones Season 7 premiere. We'll be right back.
If you've just joined us, I'm Mariama Diallo, and here is a quick recap of today's headlines. Europe's top technology company SAP has put 4 senior managers in South Africa on leave as they discover a scandal involving friends of President Jacob Zuma. We stay in South Africa, where hundreds of black South Africans imprisoned during apartheid are demanding pardons for their crimes. In Nigeria, the University of Maiduguri in the northeastern part of the country is digging 27-kilometer trenches to protect itself from the Islamist militants. Finally, in Somalia, at least 3 people were killed and several others injured in a car bomb blast just outside of the Somali capital of Mogadishu. That's all for today. Thanks for watching. We'll see you next time.
Hamilton Live is a live audience performance. With live music, you have that interaction. There's nothing like getting that immediate feedback from the folks that you're performing to. they feel it and they respond back to you. You see it in their eyes. You know that you're connecting with them. Like, if any form of communication, it's that response that you get back.
Welcome back to Africa 54, and here's what's trending. Now, a robot that reflects sunlight, glasses that can read aloud, a warning light for diabetics, and a fridge that doesn't need electricity. Now, these are all exhibits at this year's Tech Open Air in Berlin. It's a place where startup founders, investors, and media can get a feel for the next big thing. Last year, the trend was augmented and virtual reality. This year, the trend is all about health and putting humans at the center of technological advancements. Tech Open Air opened with an evening event on July 11th and runs through July the 14th. Well, next up, Chanel, Gucci, and Louis Vuitton are top-of-the-line luxury handbags that usually retail for hundreds or thousands of dollars each. In the past, only a few people could afford these highly coveted handbags. But now, a crop of new businesses are breaking down the barriers to luxury and is changing the way of people shop. The Real is one of the new e-commerce sites that sells previously owned designer luxury goods at a discount. Until recently, the idea of buying used or second-hand products was shunned, but retail analysts say that all has changed. After 6 years in business and with 5 million members, the Real expects to sell more than $500 million worth of pre-owned merchandise this year. Well, and finally, HBO celebrated the return of its award-winning and record-breaking fantasy series Game of Thrones in epic fashion with a red carpet premiere in Los Angeles. In the weeks and months leading up to the premiere, HBO has touted Season 7 as the year that House Stark's iconic words, "Winter is coming," became more than just a warning. Winter is now here, and with it comes the Night King's army of the undead and the promise of all-out war breaking across Westeros. Season 7 returns Sunday, July the 16th. And that is what is trending today. Well, and that's our show for today. Now be sure to watch Africa 54 on our website at voaafrica.com. For more news, tune in to VOA's evening radio show, Africa News Tonight, at 1800 UTC. And in the mornings, to Daybreak Africa between 0300 and 0600 UTC, Monday through Friday. Thanks a lot for watching from all of us here in Washington. Have a good night.
Welcome to English in a Minute. When something loses its original shape or form, it does not look very natural or comfortable.
Bent out of shape.
Hey, did you tell Greg about my dinner party?
Yeah, I did. I thought he was invited.
Well, now he's all bent out of shape because I didn't invite him.
I'm sorry.